Jimmy Butler, he's a very interesting player to me.
He's like, oh, shoot, I don't know where to go with the ball because I haven't been able to think.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life. Now LeBron's a 4-time champion, and Anthony Davis gets his first.
It's unacceptable. So happy when the Astros lost because it would definitely be a 2020 thing.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov. That was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
Stay undefeated when they face the mighty Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Sandler, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our MLB Opinions of the Week. I'm Kevin, and I'm joined by the man that also struggled with this, as you said before, Austin.
Yeah, I really did, Kevin. I didn't really anticipate it being as hard as it was, and then I realized the talent pool ran out quickly. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. Like, I was struggling after 6 or 7. I was like, wait. Like, they're good players, but I don't know if they're top 10. But they are top 10 for this.
Yeah, and I think a big problem I had, too, is also, like, longevity. Because where do I rank guys that got hurt? Or where do I rank guys that stayed healthy for a while but weren't as good as the guys that got hurt? But I go back and still draft those guys. It was just tough. We can skip the first pick since if you don't have Trout at 1, I don't know what we're doing. But
yeah, no, it was Trout.
You want to talk about
there
that real
was
quick?
a thought. I was like, man, no, but I'm like, yeah, Trout. 2. Who'd you go with?
For number 2, I went Paul Goldschmidt.
Oh, okay. All right. I went Strasburg, even though he's out of the league now. I just thought the pitching level that he gave, I think, would be good. So
yeah, he was a very good player. And again, with some of these, I had to consider longevity, and with Strasburg, that kind of knocked him down a little bit on my list because of the injuries. But he was extremely, extremely talented. Who'd you go with 3?
I went Zach Wheeler.
Okay. Why him?
Well, he's another, I think, very top pitcher. I know he struggled with injuries in the past, but I was just thinking in the top. Of course, I want Trout, but then I also want some really good pitchers, and I think Strasburg and Wheeler were the best pitchers.
So we again do not agree, and because I didn't go with Wheeler, I went with Nolan Arenado.
Okay, so you have Goldschmidt over Arenado.
I do. I think
Okay.
Goldschmidt's won an MVP. He's been around longer. He is a better hitter, and even though Nolan Arenado is a better fielder, I just think that what Goldschmidt can do with the bat, he's still a solid fielder. Like, he's not bad at all when it comes to fielding. But I do think that Goldschmidt is better.
Okay, because I went, and my next pick's Arenado, and I went Arenado over Goldschmidt because of defensively, but you do make some solid points, good points with Goldschmidt over Arenado.
Yeah, I think it's close, and I agree that it's close, but who do you have next?
So I have Goldschmidt. So my top 5 is Trout, Strasburg, Wheeler, Arenado, Goldschmidt.
Okay. Wait, you just said you number 5? I haven't even done my 4 yet.
Well, yeah. So I was just telling you I had Arenado at 4, then I had Goldschmidt because you have Goldschmidt, Arenado.
Okay, yeah. So I had Trout, Goldschmidt, Arenado, and then I have Strasburg at 4.
Okay.
Very talented player, but he just doesn't have the longevity that the guys in front of him have. And then at 5, I went JD Martinez. Martinez, former MVP, 20th round pick, and signed. That's something I wanted to mention really quickly. These players had to have signed. They can't wait another year and then go to the draft after they got picked here, because that's, I think, disingenuous. I'll give you a good example. James Paxton was picked 37th overall, and he did not sign. He eventually did get drafted in the 2010 draft. So James Paxton can't be on our list because he did not sign during the 2009 draft. He waited until 2010 to sign. So Paxton won't be on this list, for example.
Yeah. And same thing with international signings. It's just entirely different. These are guys that were in the draft and they signed. So this is what made it difficult.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were going to go Wheeler at 5.
No, Wheeler's only made one All-Star game, and he struggled earlier in his career with injuries. And then he's very talented. It's just the guy, I don't even have him at 6, but I'll let you go 6 before.
Okay, my 6 is JD Martinez, like you said. I was like,
okay, I just think Martinez, his peak is much higher than Wheeler. When you go to almost an MVP winner, he led the league in RBIs. He's led the league in doubles. He's been an All-Star 5 out of the last 6 seasons. He was an All-Star this past year at 35. He was also an All-Star in 2015. He's a 6-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger. And what he did for them to win that ring back in 2018, I think, was massive.
Yeah, and I believe Martinez was drafted by the Astros, and he just kind of didn't hit there. But yeah, it didn't work out. But then he worked out with the Red Sox. So yeah, I think he's a really top player. I just valued pitching, and to me, Strasburg and Wheeler are some of the better starters to come out of this draft. And I think some of the best hit pitchers overall.
Yeah, I value pitching a lot. Pitching is extremely necessary, but I don't think Wheeler trumps what JD Martinez has done. I don't even have him at my number 6. My number 6 is DJ LeMahieu. Okay. DJ LeMahieu was a top 5 player in baseball in 2019 and 2020. He finished with an MVP 4, MVP 3, and as a Yankee fan, he was amazing. He is a 3-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove, 2-time Silver Slugger, 2-time batting title. You rarely see guys that could hit for average and also be a Gold Glove winner consistently. He has, like I said, won 4 Gold Gloves. He can play first, third, second. His defensive versatility is there. He's been consistent. I know he's kind of fallen off these past couple of years, but those have mainly been because of injuries. He's starting to turn it around right now. Hopefully he can get better next season because he's obviously struggled recently. But at his peak, he was a top 3 MVP candidate that led the league in batting average, on base percentage, OPS plus. He could start hitting for power when he got to New York. And he's still good at fielding too. And that's, again, why I put him above a guy like Wheeler, who struggled with injuries at the beginning of his career, because LeMahieu, while pitching is important, defense is also important. And 4 Gold Gloves with the multiple Silver Sluggers, I think, can be very, very beneficial to your team.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, so I have LeMahieu a little bit lower. I kind of want pitchers. And this one's difficult for me, and I don't think you have him as high. Dallas Keuchel, like, I know he had such a short career, but I believe he won a Cy Young.
He did win a Cy Young. His highs were extremely, extremely, extremely high. So I do not blame you at all for having him here, and he's still in the league. He's on the Twins now, and he's pitching okay. His peak wasn't necessarily all that high, but he is one of the best fielding pitchers ever with 5 Gold Gloves, even though he didn't necessarily pitch tremendously in those seasons. But in his prime, he was extremely good.
Yeah, so that's just, I have a lot of pitchers, and it may just be me where I'm just like, out of the draft, I just want to get starters. Because that's probably the thing, is the Rangers haven't done that in forever. So
Yeah, I do think starting pitching matters. My
Oh,
problem's
yeah.
always been with a lot of the starters that people decide to go with is, can they stay healthy? Like I said, with all these guys, I would rather DJ LeMahieu, who consistently in his prime was playing almost every game, giving you stellar defense and hitting for average, than go with a guy like Wheeler, who's dealt with injuries. And I have concerns about whether or not he's going to be there in the playoffs if we make it. So,
No, that's fair. I like how we're going very different ways.
yeah, I do have Keiko at 7, though. So I
Okay.
agree with you there. His peak is so high. He was 5th in MVP. He led the league in wins, shutouts, innings, WHIP, 2.91 FIP. His peak was just so high. It's again much higher than um, Zach Wheeler, and I don't necessarily count his 2017 World Series, but he was an amazing pitcher, and I'm not going to hold any of that against him because he didn't benefit necessarily skill wise. Like he still has to make the pitches, so it worked out for him that year.
Okay. I like how we agree on 7. Who's your 8?
My 8's when we finally get to Wheeler. Wheeler, again, extremely talented, but his injuries have held him back for a while. And I do worry about how his future will go with injuries. I really hope he can stay healthy. He still has a 3.46 ERA, which is very good for a career. 3.35 FIP. He's been extremely good. He's been in MVP voting, not MVP voting, Cy Young voting twice. Once got second in it, but again, injuries concern me. And again, when we go back, I feel like that's something we get to take even greater consideration than those that fall off. Because maybe, or the ones like JD Martinez that start slow. Maybe if you draft JD Martinez higher and give him the proper training that goes to a top pick, he plays better earlier. But with Wheeler, I don't know if it's possible to go back in time, draft this guy about where he was drafted, because he was drafted 6th, and see injuries change.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a fair question. I don't really know. For me, I just feel there's gonna be injuries to the pitchers, especially high velocity pitchers, because I feel it's just an unnatural amount of stress on the body, and the injuries are a result of that stress. Like I don't. Has Strider has had Tommy John, hasn't he? Right? Or is he
Who?
not? Spencer Strider. I believe he had Tommy John in his past, right?
I think so. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, so he actually. It looks like he did. Yeah, it looks like he has Tommy John. He has had Tommy John in the past. So that's my thing. I just think it's an unnatural for guys like Strider, DeGrom, even with Bueller too. I think there's just a natural thing. So I hate it, but I think there's going to be injuries sometimes for some of the top of the line guys.
But that's what kind of is remarkable to me about a guy, and this guy is in this draft. He was in the 2011 draft. Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole throws 100. Garrett Cole is a Cy Young level pitcher. And when has he ever gotten hurt for an extended period of time? Never, really. He was hurt one time in 2016 and missed. He only pitched 21 games that year instead of his usual 30. Every other year, not counting COVID because COVID doesn't count, he's pitched 30 games, including this season, since 2017. That's why I'd rather have Cole over DeGrom. Do I believe that DeGrom is a better pitcher in a vacuum with no injuries, that if injuries didn't exist? Sure. But I trust Cole to be healthy and still pitch at an elite level. So I don't think it's necessarily guaranteed by stress on the body. Some people can just take care of their body better, and some people are just prone to injuries more than others. So it would be like if Cole was in this, he would probably be my second pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'd be behind Trout. But he's not, and that's just because of his consistency health wise, and he hasn't fallen off like Keiko, which is why Keiko has fallen down because
Yeah,
Keiko's won a
Keiko.
Cy Young. But I'll go into
He's
my
struggling now. But yeah, that's a great pick for Garrett Cole. Just wanted to say that. It's a good. I like that point.
yeah. Who is your? Is it my turn to go 8?
I thought you said your 8. Which one was your 8? Was 8 Wheeler, right?
Oh yeah. Then I have done 8.
Okay.
Is it 9
Yeah,
then
my
for me?
or
Or
no,
are
I'm
you doing 8? Okay.
Yeah. So mine, it's like this one was tough. So he's in my top 10, but Mike Minor. Like I think he's a solid starter. He's definitely had some highs, but he's also had some lows. His highs probably he was in the All-Star game. He didn't start the All-Star game. But I think he was a solid pitcher for a little bit, and he definitely had some ups and downs. But I'd still have him. I just wanted a pitcher here. So I want Mike Minor.
So you have Mike Minor above DJ LeMahieu?
Yes, I do.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also have another guy above DJ LeMahieu. So.
Oh, that's tough. LeMahieu's hit over 300. How many times in his career? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's 4 Gold Gloves, 2 batting titles, 2 best in the MLB. Wow.
Yeah,
And he's not the player that gets hurt.
Pitcher. Yeah, I know. Well, he missed an extended.
Recently, when he got into his mid 30s, he got hurt. But I'm talking about prime DJ, played 150 games almost every year.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, to me it was like starting pitcher, and like he's a guy that can pitch in the big leagues. Which looking through this draft, after the top 10, oh man, I have a reliever after the top 10, but there's a starter, but it really falls off here after my 9th pick.
Yeah, I don't really have that steep of a drop off. I think it's kind of a little more consistent how it goes down. Who's your 9 now?
My 9's Kyle Gibson. Similar to Mike Minor. But yeah, still a solid starter. He's doing okay with the Orioles. His best year may have been with the Rangers when he started the All-Star game.
Yeah, you have back-to-back. You don't think you have a little bit of bias towards these guys?
Well, I do have a little bit of bias, but I think my overall bias is just pitching in the draft because that's something so rare to me.
Then where do you think the great pitchers come from?
No, I'm just saying, like, when I look at the Rangers, they're great. They haven't had a homegrown pitcher in forever. Like, they haven't drafted a guy and developed him to where he can start, I believe, since like the 70s, maybe the 80s.
That started an All-Star game, you said?
I think just like I think just in general, it's just so terrible. I'm trying to see. Because they've had signings, like they signed Yu Darvish, but
it's just the fact that these guys like Kyle Gibson and Mike Minor that we'll get to in a while for me, they were just they had a lot of bad seasons. Like they were not good. And then they've had a couple seasons where they're good. Minor's only had 2 seasons below a 4 ERA as a starter. I don't want that. That's just not something that interests me as a drafter.
I'm looking at a website. I'm trying to see. Oh man, this is late. But yeah, so yeah, there's some bias with me. I think just okay. Apparently, Derek Holland in 2013, but drafted. I'm trying to look.
Okay.
Yeah, so it may actually be Derek Holland, but still. Okay, yeah. So he's drafted by the Texas Rangers, and then. So yeah, Derek Holland was, and so that goes to tell you the Rangers' development system for starting pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but again, I just kind of lean another way.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Who's your 9?
My 9 is Kyle Seager. Seager's an incredibly underrated player, in my opinion. He was much better than he got a lot of credit for. He was a one-time All-Star, one-time Gold Glove, but he was in MVP voting twice. So he got MVP votes twice, but only made one All-Star game. That's really confusing. Uh, if you go to his WAR above 5 in a season is considered to be All-Star level, and he had WAR above 5 3 different times. He consistently was very high in D-WAR. He has 7.6 D-WAR for his career. Very, very underrated player. And I think the fact that he played in Seattle really did kind of hurt his chances at getting those extra awards, especially because this was the time when they were just extremely, extremely bad. But it does really hurt to see that he, like in 2016, he was ninth in the AL in offensive WAR and didn't make an All-Star game that season. He just, I kind of got ostracized out of that spot, and I know he's still retired a little bit early after his age 33 season, but he was a solid hitter. He hit 112 OPS plus. I mean, his last year he hit 35 homers and 101 RBIs, which was pretty remarkable. But yeah, Seager just a very good, consistent player that was a pretty underrated fielder.
Yeah, I liked him as well. Now is my DJ LeMahieu is 10. Once I got back to hitters, I'm like, yeah, I have to have DJ LeMahieu up here.
Okay. Who's your next?
Then my 11's Brandon Belt. Really like him, and he's still in the league. It was weird with Seager. I'm like, man, he was so good, but like he just kind of left early, like you said. But Belt's still in the league. And he's had, like, he was really good in 2020. Or no, I think it was 2021. But overall, I think Belt's a solid hitter. I'm just different from LeMahieu.
I do think that's a crazy teardrop. Like, if you go from hitter, like, top 4 MVP candidate twice with DJ to Brandon Belt, who was probably the 4th best hitter on that team on average whenever he's on the Giants. Third or 4th. Because I'd say Crawford was better than him a good significant portion of the time. And obviously, who wasn't even close to Buster Posey.
Yeah.
And then they also had what's his name? Was it
Evan?
Pablo Sandoval. Pablo Sandoval. Do you remember him? The third baseman?
A little bit.
He's the one who made the game-winning catch in the 2014 World Series. That pop-up. It's a foul pop-up by Salvador Perez, and he catches it. He was pretty good. He made multiple All-Star games.
Gotcha.
So usually Brandon Belt was the 3rd best hitter on his team, while DJ was top 3 in MVP finishing. So yeah. I just think that's a big drop off.
And do you think? Well, I'll let you go. Who's your 11?
Oh, you can ask the question if you want.
Well, do you think? I think Kyle Seager's kind of a similar tier, or is he better than Belt?
I get what you're saying. I do have LeMahieu at 6 and Seager at 9, but Seager has been top 12 in MVP voting. He's had
Yeah.
3 seasons where he was a good enough WAR. He was a good fielder. I do think there is a teardrop there. I would agree. But the difference between Belt and LeMahieu back-to-back picks is a multi-time top 4 MVP candidate to the 4th best hitter on his team during World Series runs. So while Belt is definitely very talented, it just caps your ceiling a little bit. I think if you were to draft him right after LeMahieu, like the difference between getting those two guys, I think is wildly different. Especially because Bell, I don't think is the best. I can fact check this. Yeah, he's not the best fielder.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has negative 3.7 DWAR for his career.
But yeah, that's the biggest thing to me is like there's severe drop offs in this draft compared to other redrafts.
I think that's just how baseball is.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many picks.
Mhm.
And you don't even, like you said, count the international products that take spots away from all these other guys. So I'll go into my 11. No, my 10. Because I haven't done my 10 yet. My 10 is Matt Carpenter. Carpenter is another guy that's had MVP level play before. He was 4th in MVP voting in 2013, so his peak is extremely, extremely high. He was a 13th round pick, which is remarkable. He's led the league in doubles twice, walks once, hits once. He had 199 hits in 2013. He's, like I said before, 3-time All-Star, 1-time Silver Slugger. He was so good with the Yankees last year. It's actually remarkable how good he was with the Yankees. But his best seasons obviously came with St. Louis, and he was top 12 MVP candidate 3 times, top 9 twice, and obviously, like I said, MVP 4 in 2013. Very, very good player. And again, that's why I don't necessarily have Belt here, is because Matt Carpenter is another guy that in his peak was extremely, extremely, extremely good. When you go from 2013 to 2018, you have a player that's been in MVP voting 3 times, made 3 All-Stars, and won a Silver Slugger.
Yeah, that's fair. Who's your 11?
My 11 is AJ Pollock. AJ Pollock is, I think, a very underrated player for what a lot of people think. He was a champion with the 2020 Dodgers. He was 14th in MVP voting in 2015 with Arizona, but a lot of his best years coming in Arizona, kind of, again, like it did with Seager, stymied his ability to be a very highly rated player. But he was just hurt a lot. That's what really tanked him down, is that he was hurt a lot, but his peak is extremely, extremely high. A great outfield glove. And if he could just have played some more games during his prime, I would have had him much higher, because he hit 315, and the year before that he hit 302, but didn't play the entire season. He could hit for average whenever he was healthy. The problem was he wasn't. So this is probably the first guy that I'm drafting based on if he could have been healthy, that I think AJ Pollock could have been outstanding.
Gotcha. So now I'm at 12, right?
Yeah, you do your 12. Wait, have you done your 11? Who's your 11?
Yeah, my 11's Belt.
Okay, yeah, you do your 12 and I'll do my 12.
Okay, yeah. So my 12 is Matt Carpenter for many reasons. I think are Belt, Carpenter, and Seager in the same tier or no?
I wouldn't put Belt in that same tier. I don't think Belt's ever been the best player on his own team, and
Gotcha.
that's very difficult with it when you have Buster Posey. But there's a lot of seasons where he was, again, 4th best on his own team as a hitter, not even including pitchers. When Matt Cain was throwing perfect games, or Tim Lincecum was throwing perfect games or no hitters and winning Cy Youngs, and they had Madison Bumgarner out there pitching amazing. Like, he was at best in his prime a top 5 player on his own team if you included pitchers. While you had Seager, and besides Felix Hernandez, it's really just Seager. So if you even including pitchers, he's the 2nd best. And then with Carpenter, that year he was the 4th in MVP voting. He was easily the best player on his team, because that was after what was his name left? Retired last year. Give me a second. I just can't think.
Pitcher on Giants?
No. Matt Carpenter. He retired. The guy. I'll find it. Albert Pujols. Pujols retired or not retired. He retired last year. That's why I was trying to
Gotcha.
get him here. But he was easily the best player on the Cardinals in 2013, even over Yachty, even over Wainwright. Because to be fourth in MVP voting is to be elite. While Belt, yes, he is MVP voting one time, but that was in the 2020 season. That was 51 games.
Gotcha. Okay. I see what you're saying. But yeah, so who's your 12?
My 12 is Jason Kipnis. So, because I just don't like the pitchers in this range. I don't think they're consistent enough. So I went with Kipnis. He had another short career, but his prime was outstanding. He was top 16 MVP voting twice. He was a two-time All-Star. He hit 303 in 2015 with a 120 OPS plus, 130 OPS plus in 2013. He was a starter on those teams that made the World Series for Cleveland in 2016. He played a lot of games, but then he just got hurt. It's the very end of his career, 32, 33, 34. He didn't even play his 34 season. Just at the end of his career, just fell off after injuries. His last 4 seasons are to be forgotten. But he wasn't the best fielder, negative 0.8 for his career, which isn't terrible. It's about average. So that's not good or bad. It's just something. But two-time All-Star, and he was so good in those seasons that he was very good for the Cleveland team that made the World Series. I do think that because he was fourth on that team in WAR. So, yeah, I just think he's, again, a little bit more consistent than those guys, than the pitchers we have in this range.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really in the hitters. My 13 guy is Kyle Seager. So you've already talked about him enough. And for many of the reasons you said, the short career kind of put him a little bit lower down for me. But it's just difficult to gauge. So that's why he's at my 13.
Okay. My 13 is Mike Leake. He is my first pitcher in a while, or my first pitcher since Zach Wheeler. Leake is a very underrated pitcher, and while he never made an All-Star game, he was a Gold Glove winner, I think in 2019. Yep, 2019. But he had a much lower ERA than Mike Minor in his career, or even Kyle Gibson. He had a 4.05 ERA, and that just ERA over a career, I think, matters a lot more than those prime seasons, especially if you're not that much better. Minor has a 4.25, and let me go to Gibson. I think his is 4.57 or something like that. 4.57. And it's just the fact that with those guys I haven't seen, yes, he's had one good season, but when you go ERA above 5 for a guy like Kyle Gibson, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or I'll say 5. 5 because this season's not over. So 5. Minor season's over 5. He only had, I say only, he had 1, 2, 3. But you go to a guy like Leake, he's just much more consistent. He had no ERA seasons above 5. 0. Now, he never made an All-Star game. But I would rather a consistent pitcher that's going to pitch around the 4 ERA range and sometimes be a little bit better and sometimes be a little bit worse. But his worst ERA was 4.69. Now, his best was 3.37, which is very good. But the gap between those two is not very much. He was just consistent. Every year, he would give you about a 4 ERA, sometimes a little bit lower, like I said, sometimes a little bit higher. But definitely worthwhile. And that's very evident when you go to his ERA plus, which his best is 112 and his worst is 87. That's 13% worse than average and 12% above average. It falls within a range that is very, very easy to see, easy to predict. And that's a player that you can just go out and pitch every 5th day and be the 3rd or 4th guy in your rotation, maybe 5th if you're a very good bullpen or very good starting 5 pitchers. But it's just that's just a player those are the pitchers I want. Is ultra consistent. again, between 25 percentage points, between 12, 12% better or 13% worse. And the fact that it's 13% worse or 12% better is just so funny to me. It's about the same amount both ways. He's just consistent right around that 4 ERA mark, and that's solid. He's a solid pitcher. He's never great, but never bad. And that's something I can appreciate.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I have him a little bit lower, but I'm going to kind of bunch some guys since you've already talked about them, and we've done that a little bit. So 14 is AJ Pollock for me. Then, like all the reasons you said, I think he's a solid guy, and he should definitely be in this. Then 15 is Jason Kipnis, as you mentioned. Then 16 for me is Mike Leake. You've gone in depth more, so for the reasons, to me, they're just solid guys. And like you said, with Mike Leake. So I kind of want to put those in like a group. Since you've already talked about them enough, I just wanted to say that's who I have at 14, 15, 16.
Okay, I'll do my 14, 15 because we have talked about those guys a solid amount. My 14 is Brandon Belt, and for a lot of the reasons you said, but also the reasons I've already mentioned is why he's lower. So I think we can kind of pass over that. And then my 15 is Kyle Gibson. Again, his 4.57 ERA for his career just kind of knocks him down a little bit. His peak is, I think, higher than Mike Minor, so that's why I don't have Mike Minor here yet. But it just, between those two, it's very close. So, but my number 16 is Patrick Corbin, a guy that we have not mentioned yet, and a guy that I have to give props to. He has dealt with a very bad fielding situation in Washington, and his ability to pitch in the clutch during the World Series was amazing. He's a two-time All-Star. He was 5th in Cy Young voting in 2018 and 11th in Cy Young voting when he didn't make an All-Star game in 2019. So he probably should have made another one. And his peak is there. He's struggled these past couple of years, but his FIP has been much lower. So when you see his 6.31 ERA, you're like, that's so bad. But his FIP is 4.83. So that's probably where his ERA should have been, is around 4.83. So he's a lot better. When you look at his FIP for his career, it's 4.08, but you look at his ERA for his career, it's 4.39. So his fielding has kind of messed him up. He hasn't played in the best situations fielding-wise, but I do think he's should be getting more props than I think he does than he gets when people talk about Patrick Corbin.
Okay. Who's your 17?
This is Mike Minor, so we don't have to necessarily stay on it too long. We've kind of talked about it.
Okay. Cool. My 17 is Patrick Corbin. So.
Okay.
Pretty
So
close.
we're kind of getting in the same area of players here.
Yeah. Then my 18 is Yan Gomes. I think he's just a solid catcher. And I was also, this is a side note, a lot of these guys were on that 2019 national teams that we talked about.
I realized that. I thought that was very.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
This draft was huge for their future championship. They wouldn't know at the time, especially because most of these guys were taken by other teams. But I agree that's a great point to bring up.
Yeah. Who do you have 18?
So my 18 is Steven Matz. Steven Matz has kind of been – he's gotten the short end of the stick from injuries as well, but he's another guy that I just think if he was 100% healthy all the time, he would be much better. He's a 4.25 ERA, but again, he hasn't played enough. That's the problem, is that his rookie years in 2015 after being drafted in 2009. And then he's also dealt with a lot of injuries. He's only started 163 games, been in 181 games in his career. He's pitched well for St. Louis, been one of their good pitchers with a 3.86 ERA. And he is solid. Whenever he's at his best, he's very, very good. But his injury concerns really, really knock him down.
Yeah, he's a little bit later for me. I kind of went in just like solid role players because at 19 I have Enrique Kike Hernandez.
Yeah, I have Kike a little bit lower, and that's because I think the one season in 2021 that he had has really put him above what his talent level really is. His best season was easily that year. He's never been within 1.5 WAR that season. In the past 3 years, if you add up those seasons, he has .8 WAR. His last 3 seasons combined,
Dang.
.8. He's just been very, very, very bad. Or I guess his last 2 seasons, because because in Boston he was negative .7. LA this year he's .6. So this year he's still negative, but then last year is .9. So it was over his last 2 seasons is .8. But again, he does have that top level skill. That 2001 season and then run in the playoffs was remarkable. But I don't know if that was just him getting hot. So I wouldn't necessarily draft him based on that season, because it just seemed like a really, really special year for him, which doesn't take anything away from what he did that year. He was amazing, but I do think he deserves to be a little bit lower. My 19 is Yan Gomes. You just mentioned him. Very just solid catcher. You mentioned solid players are here, and that's true. Yan Gomes is extremely solid.
All right. My next guy is Brian Dozier. 20. Solid guy. Short career. He had a nice peak, though. He had a 120 OPS plus. So I think he was a really solid dude, but just a short career.
Yeah, that's my next guy is Dozier. And then he's very comparable to Kipnis, but Kipnis was just better. And I have Dozier lower because his career was even shorter, basically, because of injuries again. The fact that his last year that he played double digit games was in 2019 when he won the World Series. So just another player with the Nationals, again, retired extremely young. He really only had, 7 seasons? Yeah, he really only played 7 seasons. So I just think Kipnis was a little bit better. They're both in the same tier of player, which is why I think besides Gomes, they're the 2 closest players to each other. Oh, and also Belt. But Kipnis just played, I think, a little bit better. It's really close between those two, though. And I do think that all these players from Belt or from Kipnis or really Pollock to Dozier are all in the same tier. And I'm fine with anyone moving those guys around.
Yeah, I agree. And then my next, okay, so you and I have Dozier at the same spot. Then I have Steven Matz. For many of the reasons you said, I just liked those solid guys ahead of Matz. So who do you have at 21?
At 21, I have Will Myers. He was a rookie of the year. And again, his prime was a lot better, but he's really fallen off since then. He was an all-star in 2016, but that was really his peak. He's just been so bad in the field. He has okay O-WAR, but his D-WAR being negative 5.8. They can't put him anywhere on the field. He's just not good enough in the field for him really to play. And he was on the Reds this year, but it's fallen out of the lineup completely. And I'm afraid that his career could be very, very close to over.
Yeah, he's actually my next guy, so I think we can move on. Who do you have at 22?
At 22, this is where I have Kiki Hernandez. I just think that one season was a flash in the pan, just kind of like Will Myers. But Will Myers has really 2 seasons. He has his All-Star year and his Rookie of the Year, while Kike really just has that 1 year where he was extremely, extremely proficient in 2021. So, again, I put these guys, after we get to Will Myers, in a different tier, where these guys either have had one flash in the pan year or just been consistent, but not ever really all-star level if they're the consistent type.
Yeah, I agree. I think all these next guys have moments. My 23 is Tyler Matzik. I think he's had moments as a reliever.
Okay. Who's your next guy?
Who do you have at 23?
Oh, we're not going back and forth. 23, I have Michael A. Taylor.
Okay.
Taylor is a very good fielder. Another player on the 20. This is kind of crazy how many players we have on this 2019 Nationals team, and he's not a great hitter, but fielding wise, he's remarkable. He has 9 D-WAR to only 3.9 O-WAR in his career. utterly remarkable. He's still a good fielder right now. He had one plate appearance in the World Series, Kevin. Do you know what happened in that one plate appearance?
Home run.
Home run.
Nice.
He's been good. 2.6 WAR in 2021, 3.2 WAR in 2022, and 2 WAR this season with Minnesota. He's getting better at hitting. He's hit 20 home runs. He could rise up these rankings if he continues to improve hitting wise. But he is such a good fielder. That's why I have him here.
Okay. Yeah, he's a little bit lower, but I can understand having everyone different after Matzek, who was my 23, and then my 24 was Joe Kelly.
Okay. Yeah, he's a tough guy for me to rank. We'll get to him eventually. My next guy at 24 is Chris Davis. Chris Davis was a home run machine. And I don't know if you knew this, but he hit 247 in 4 straight years. 2015 with Milwaukee, 2016, 2017, 2018 with Oakland. He hit 40-plus homers in 4 straight years. He never made an All-Star game. That's probably because he had negative 8.4 D-WAR. He could not field. But as a designated hitter, 3-plus season with 40-plus homers. He led the league in homers in 2018. And like I said, very consistent guy there in his prime. And I always loved watching Chris Davis play. He could hit homers.
Yeah. Rangers legend Chris Davis with a K. Because he got us Jonah Heim. But yeah, I'm a little bit later, but totally understand. So my 25 is Mike Mikolas. I think he's just a solid starter.
Miles Mikolas?
Miles Mikolas, yeah.
Yeah, I also have him next for me as well. My problem with him, though, is injuries. Like, he played 2012, 2013. He played 27. Well, really, you could count all those up. He played 37 games in his first 3 careers combined, or first 3 years combined. And it didn't play again until 2018 with St. Louis when he almost won the Cy Young. And then was not great the next year. And then didn't play in 2020. And then has been solid. The problem is just his length of his career. He's only started 146 games, 174 games played in. It's just the fact that he doesn't play in games. That's why he's so low.
Yeah, I agree. Now we're at 26. And that, for me, is Trevor Rosenthal.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I went with Jake Marisnick. He was a player that was on the he was on the Astros when they won, right?
It sounds right, yeah.
I'm just going to search it up right quick. Oh, he was not. Oh, wait, he was on the team. It just doesn't have him having a World Series, which probably means he was hurt for the playoffs. That's probably what that means.
His name sounds very familiar.
Yeah, he has a 333 batting average in the postseason, even though he doesn't play all that much in the postseason. He's a primarily defensive player. He has 12 WAR for his career, which is fine. But he has 9.6 D WAR. He is the Michael A. Taylor. He's just worse than Michael A. Taylor, but he's that type of player, just a fielding overall player, and that's kind of why he's at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel we got 4 guys left. My 27's Tucker Barnhart. Do you just want to say the next 4 guys in a row, or?
We can kind of, sure. Okay. Or just go a little bit slower than that, but
okay.
Because I kind of want to say something at least about the next guy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you can do that.
My next guy is Brock Holt. Holt, I'm sure you remember him with the Rangers. He wasn't great for the Rangers, but he was very underrated in his prime. He was extremely good for Boston, and he won a World Series for him. These are the type of players I think that you need to win rings. It's just those consistent players that can make all-star games every once in a while, but are just solid. These are the draft picks that, like I said, win rings. He was a starter, or he played in 3 games in the World Series, but started those 3 games. Had 15 plate appearances. He was a pinch hitter a lot of those games, especially the ones that were in LA. But these, I think, once we get towards the end of this first round, you can really see the difference between those star players that win you games, but then you get to players like you mentioned, like Tucker Barnhart, who's my next guy. That you need to win a World Series because these players aren't going to be uh, amazing, but they can have flash in the pan seasons, or they could just be solid role players.
Yeah, okay. So Tucker Barnhart's your next guy. My next guy is Michael A. Taylor. Um, just a little bit lower. But yeah, you made similar reasons. But yeah, this one was just tough. Like these are guys I see in like third rounds or the second round of like NBA draft, NFL draft. But it's so difficult. It looks like to just hit on picks um, for just a great player in baseball.
Yeah, I completely agree. My next guy is Sam Dyson. That's my 29, and then you just want me to say my 30 now.
Yeah, yeah.
Tyler Massick. He's just not played enough games. He did not play a single game in between, or 16, 17, 18, 19. Did not play a single game. So that just puts him below some of the other guys, even though he may be a better reliever than Sam Dyson. I like Dyson more.
Okay. My 29 and 30 is Randall Grichuk and then Chris Davis.
Okay.
So yeah. I didn't expect this to go this long, but there's a lot of detail and yeah, let us know what you think. Austin, I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, sorry for this for being a longer video, but if you guys stuck with us, thank you, and check us in the next video.